Namaste students. Today we are going to begin with the fourth chapter from Reflections, that is Oru Manushan. Writer is Vaikom Muhammad Bashir. And to know about this particular writer, let's just see about the information. He was born on 21st January 1908 and he died on 5th July 1994. He was Indian writer who wrote in Malayalam language. He was a writer, humanist, freedom fighter. Now, why freedom fighter? Because he was very much influenced by Mahatma Gandhi. That he took part in Satyagraha movement, and many a times he was sent to jail, and for that reason he was always away from his house. He has spent a life as a wanderer. So we can say yes, he was a freedom fighter, he was a novelist and a short story writer. His down-to-earth style of writing made him very popular. He was so much down to earth that one day his younger brother, actually, when he left the house, the charge of the house was taken by his younger brother, and that younger brother was a Malayalam teacher in school. So he used to always, whenever he used to come home, he used to always scold him, "Why don't you take care of the grammar?" So, to this, what Bashir used to say is, "Your silly, stupid grammar, who cares? I write in common man's language." So, his stories have been translated into English and various other Indian languages. He was honorary fellow of the Sahitya Academy, Kerala Sahitya Academy. He was the recipient of Kerala Sahitya Academy Award, Padma Shri Award, Kerala State Film Award for Best Story, and many more. Actually, his real name is Abdul Rahman Muhammad Bashir, but he is called as Vaikom. Why? Because he belongs to a village which is in Vaikom Taluk. Now, Vaikom is a municipal town and a capital town of Vaikom Taluk. The town is also noted for its role in the Indian independence movement, for being the venue of Vaikom Satyagraha, a civil rights movement aimed at securing freedom of movement. So this was regarding the writer. Now let's see the chapter. Chapter's name is Oru Manushan. So who according to you is a good human being? They have given options over here. The person who helps a needy, or extracting money from others, having a self-contained life, or being, actually you can say, violent. So according to you, who is said to be Oru Manushan? So let's begin. Here we have the chapter. You have no definite plans. Of course, here author as a freedom fighter, he was not having any definite plans. He was not always away from his house. He was sent to jail many times, and it is said that he was always wandering. He went to various places. So he says that you have no definite plans. You are wandering around far away from home. You have no money with you. You do not know the local language. Now, actually, being a Malayalam, if you see, he knows his own mother tongue, Malayalam. He goes to the northern part of northern India, and just imagine he doesn't know any other language. He knows, he has, what he has mentioned here is, you can speak English and Hindustani. So suppose if you are in such a condition where you don't know any other language, in India there are many languages spoken. So you don't know any other language, you know only your mother tongue, and you know English and you know Hindustani. Now Hindustani is not as familiar, like as you can say as Hindi. Hindi has most of the words from Sanskrit. Hindustani has most of the words from Urdu. Now, Hindustani was the language in the past used by northeastern people, say Pakistanis, and the northern part of India. This language was used as a communication language between these two nations. Okay, so but very few knew about this language. Which one? Hindustani. So what he says is, people know either of these languages. Either they know English or they know Hindustani. And Malayalam, of course, he was from the south. The people in the north, they were not knowing Malayalam. So he is in general speaking about any one of us. It may be you, it may be the author or anyone. If from your state, if you leave your state and if you go out of your state, what problems you face? This can land you in many predicaments, many adventures can befall you. Sorry. He says that yes, no, such a situation. If you're leaving your own hometown, if you're leaving your own home, like state where you're staying, and when you go outside, you to face many problems. First and foremost problem is language. If you don't know the language, the people speaking over there, how will you communicate with them? Right? So he then continues, you find yourself caught in a dangerous situation. Now, what sort of dangerous situations are there? We don't know because we have not experienced, we have not left our own state, we are in our state. A total stranger rescues you. Even after years pass by, will sometimes remember the man and wonder why he did so. No, you are in a situation, in a dangerous situation, and a stranger comes and rescues you. Will you forget that stranger? No. Even as the time passes, you will recall that particular moment and you will remember that particular stranger who had helped you when you were in danger. That is what he says in this paragraph. Let us say it was I, not you. He is now making it clear because somewhat he wants to come to his story because now back home, whichever story he wrote, it was based on his real life experience. Now I'll just tell you about one thing. He had written a story called Janmadinam. It's on his birthday, how he had struggled to get a cup of tea. Now, on our birthdays, we bring cake, we have parties, and we are gifted by our friends, by our relatives. But he tells this incident because he was a wanderer. He was not staying far away from his land, from his house, and what problems he faced in a very simple Malayalam language he has mentioned. So then he says, let us say it is I, not you, who remembers no, the man who rescued him. It is he saying that okay, let's not say that it's you. It is I who remembers the man who has saved me. Let's see what is the incident. I am now narrating an experience which I had. I have some vague notions about human beings, including myself. Now he's saying actually I have some vague means what? Some very or not, you can say it's strange. Notions means what? Opinions, you can say, about human beings. Or vague, you can say best thing is not clear. Okay, so not clear notions about human beings, including myself. There are around me good men and thieves. So he tells about the incident when he was staying far away from his land. He says that the place where I was staying, there were some good people also, some bad people also. There were thieves, those who suffer from various infectious diseases and from madness. One has to live carefully. Now, when you go far away from your motherland, when you are a stranger, you know, in a stranger land, no, in a different land, you have to be very, very careful because here the author says you have no people around you, those who are in, though they may be having infectious diseases, they are mad people, they are crazy people, there are thieves, there are good people also. So you have to be very, very careful while dealing with all sort of people. So next he says that the world has more evil than good. We realize this only after we get hurt. That's a fact, right? When we are at our home, when we are safe among our people, we feel that the world is very, very good. It's like an heaven. But once you go far away from your house, you realize that world is not just heaven, there is even hell over here. So as you get experience with the people, as you get hurted by the people, you get experience, you get to know that yes, there are good people, there are bad people also. So that is what he is pointing out, that once you go far away from your house, you realize there are bad people also after experiencing or after having bad experiences. Let me record here incident which perhaps quite insignificant, which was quite perhaps insignificant. Let me tell you about that particular incident. It was quite a big city in the valley of a mountain, some 1,500 miles from home. So he is telling about mountain. If you see, it is nowhere in the south. We have Western Ghats and Eastern Ghats. We don't have mountains, we have hills. So maybe he is not staying in south, he is somewhere in the north. So he says it was quite a big city in the valley of a mountain, some 1,500 miles from home. the inhabitants of which had never been known for the quality of mercy. He clearly mentions that the people over there, they were not at all kind people, they were cruel people. They were a cruel people. Murderer, murder, robbery, pickpocketing, these were daily occurrences. So the place where I was staying, the author says where I was staying, there these were common occurrences which were happening every day. Murder, robbery, pickpocketing. Okay. By tradition, the people were professional soldiers. Yes, actually, if you see the people, the city, this big city is in the valley of a mountain, and the people over there, it's quite natural. They may be hard worker, they may be strong enough. So he says that by profession, by tradition, the profession of these people was like they were soldiers, or you can say might be their forefathers were soldiers. Some of them went to distant places and lent out money on interest. Some of them, they went to different places. There they became as money lenders. They used to give money, lend money to the people and take the money back with rate of interest. Many others served as watchmen in banks, mills, and large commercial establishments in big cities. So many of the people, they worked as watchmen. Where they worked as watchmen? In banks, mills, and large commercial establishments in big cities. Money was highly valued by them. Why? Because after a lot of struggle, they used to earn money. So money was valued by them. For money, they would do anything, even commit murder. So I hope you got to know about the particular situation or the city where he was staying. It was a big city in the mountain valley where money was given more of importance. Why? Because it was very hard to earn. And the people, in order to earn money, they did murder, they did robbery, they were doing pickpocketing. Few of them, they had left the land, they were staying somewhere else, they became money lenders. And many of them, they were working as watchmen in banks, mills, and large commercial establishments. So here again, I would like to say that here he is pointing out that money was more important, and for that purpose, they even committed murder. So you can just imagine what sort of people were there among whom he was staying. Okay, I stayed in that city in a very small, dingy room on a dirty street. Now, you might have seen your house is kept neat by your mother. Your father has built a very beautiful house for you. But here, if you see the author's condition, he was staying along the street side in a small, dirty room. And I've just got this picture. It is not the same room where he was staying. You can get the idea. A very, very small room. So I stayed in that city in a very small, dingy room on a dirty street. I earned on a profession there, teaching English to some of the migrant laborers from 9:30 till 11 in the night. So what was his profession? Teaching English. Okay. And what was the timing? 9:30 in the evening till 11 o'clock. Okay, so to whom he used to teach English? Migrant laborers, the people coming from all parts of from various nearby villages, all these things, who were staying over there, who were working over there, who were laborers. To them, he used to teach English. I taught them to write addresses in English. Learning to write an address in English was considered great education there. Now you may laugh at this, that how come? No, just to know to write English address is education. Yes, in those days when English was introduced into India, when people were not knowing to speak, when people are not knowing to understand what is this particular language, in those days writing in English was considered to be, actually what he says is education, great education over there. You must have seen people who write addresses at post office. So let's see people who write addresses at post office. You might have seen such things. This is a picture of post office. Of course, outside the post office, you may see certain people will be there. They are specially meant for writing addresses because many of the people in India are illiterate. They don't know to read and write. So there are certain sort of people, especially their job is to write addresses. Okay, so you must have seen people who write addresses at the post offices. They were paid anything between 1 anna and 4 annas for writing an address. You might have seen annas. Now, actually, when we were small, we had 4 anna. 4 anna, nothing else. It is nothing else but 25 paise. 4 annas is equal to 25 paise. I'll just show the picture of. Actually, this is 1 anna. So as he's pointing out, they were paid anything between 1 anna and 4 annas for writing an address. So you might have seen these coins. Your parents, if they love to do coin collections, you might have seen in their coin collection, these coins are there. So it has, of course, now it has no value, but in those days it was very, very precious. So they were paid anything between 1 anna and 4 annas for writing an address. I hope you have seen these coins. So I taught the skill of writing addresses to people in order to escape the same fate myself and to see if I could save some money. What is the fate actually? If I don't teach them to write English, if I don't earn money by doing this, even I will have to do robbery, even I will have to do murder, even I will have to do actually what? Pickpocketing. So I taught the skill of writing addresses to people in order to escape the same fate myself and to see if I could save some money. In those days, I would sleep all day and wake up at 4 in evening. Now, why he was doing this? Whole day he used to sleep and he used to wake up in the evening. This was to save the expense of drinking my morning tea or eating the noon meal. You might laugh at this, right? But it is the reality. This is a fact. A person sleeps for the whole day just to escape. Why? Because he has to spend some money to spend some money for his morning tea and breakfast. He has to spend some money for his afternoon meal, or you can see your lunch. So what he does is he sleeps till 4 o'clock. At 4 o'clock he wakes up and then he carries on his job. As he has mentioned over here, 9:30 to 11 o'clock he teaches the migrant laborers to write in English what their addresses. So one day I got up at 4 p.m. as usual. I finished my daily course and stepped out for my tea and a meal. So at 4 o'clock, of course, he might be getting ready and he steps out to get his usual tea and meal. You may again laugh why this person is having meal and tea, right? So he used to have tea and night dinner, you can say. You must understand that I was dressed in a suit. Of course, now why he has to dress in a suit? Because as per his profession, he has to wear this because he was a teacher who used to teach English. No, because suit, if you say Indian won't wear a suit when he's teaching Hindi or when he's teaching Sanskrit. If you see, you might have seen your professors, you might have seen your lecturers. If he's a Sanskrit teacher or if he's a Hindi teacher or any language teacher, they have the dress code. So for him, this was a dress code. What is that? Suit. So he said that actually, you must understand that I was dressed in a suit. I had a wallet in my coat pocket. I had 14 rupees in it. My life's saving at the time. Now 14 rupees. Now if you just compare today's 14 rupees, what are all things you get in 14 rupees? You may say, okay, I will get two packets of Lays, 5 rupees, and 4 rupees I may eat some peppermints or something, right? So 14 rupees of today's age and 14 rupees of that age, you can just compare. So what he's saying, it was his life's achievement, or you can say it's life saving. Okay. So he says that in that particular suit which I was wearing, in my pocket, I was having a wallet, and in that wallet, I had 14 rupees, which was actually nothing else but my life's saving. I entered a crowded restaurant. Why crowded restaurant? Maybe the restaurant is serving the food at a very cheap rate, or maybe that was the only restaurant over there, or maybe the people they love the food which was served over there. Who knows? So I entered a crowded restaurant. I ate a full meal consisting of chapatis and meat curry. Now, each and every part of India, if you say they have their own staple food. In the south, if you see, the people won't be having chapatis for your, dinner or lunch. They'll be having as a breakfast in the morning. But if you go to north, yes, chapati is must. So here what he says is, I ate a full meal consisting of chapatis and meat curry. I drank tea as well. The bill came to 11 annas. So what is the charge now? Tea along with the meal, it came to 11 annas. I put my hand in my pocket to pay it. I began sweating. Now why he began sweating? When normally we sweat if there is no AC, right? Or if there is no fan. But here he's not mentioning about AC or fan. He says, as soon as I put my hand into my suit pocket to remove my wallet, I started sweating profusely. Profusely means what? Abundantly. I was sweating like as if I've taken a bath, you can say. And almost digested in an instant all that I had eaten. The reason was my wallet was not there. Have you experienced such things? If you would have been in the class, would have just enjoyed knowing about, because of, there are students, they give their experiences, they go along with their friends, one by one the friends, they leave the hotel and then they are left behind. No, such incidents I have heard from my students. And then how they manage is they will give a call to their uncle. So they told, we gave a call, we had a mobile, we gave a call to the uncle, my uncle came and he paid the bill. But in his case, he's not having a mobile because in those days mobiles were not there. So now in his case, he's saying, when I put my hand into the suit pocket, I found that my wallet was not there. It was missing. I said, someone had picked my pocket and taken away my wallet. Innocently, he told the owner, I'm sorry, my wallet is not there. It was there in my pocket, but someone has stolen it. Someone has taken it. It was a very busy restaurant. The owner gave a loud knock, startling everyone around. Of course, he started laughing loudly. And then, while listening to that, other people, all who were standing around, they started to look. What is the incident? What happened? He caught me by the lapels of my coat. Lapels, if you know, it's the collar. So what he did? He caught with his lapels. No, you have seen in the movies, right? Now he's going to force. He's going to use physical force to ask him, why are you telling lies? And shaking me cried, this trick won't work here. Put the money down and go, or else I will gouge your eyes out. What I'll do, I'll remove your eyes balls. If you don't pay it, don't do all such tricks over here because these tricks are common over here. Okay, so this trick won't work. Keep the money on my table. Otherwise, I will remove your eyes. That was enough for the author to get scared in this unknown place where he doesn't know anyone over there. He had his meal, but now he is not having money to pay for it. I looked at the people around me. I did not see even one kind face. Maybe if he was expecting at least someone should come and they will say, okay, Baba, I will pay his money or you can repay me afterwards. They had the look of hungry wolves. Each and everyone over there, they were eager to see what is going to happen next. If he said he would gouge my eyes out, he would gouge them out. Why? Because he knew that people over there were very, very cruel. They were not kind. If the owner said he is going to remove my eyes, he will do it. I said, let my coat be here. Now, even having a coat is not a very, you can say it's a very expensive thing. So what he said, okay, fine, I'll keep my coat over here. I will go and bring some money. Anyhow, I'll go and get some money from somewhere. Okay. The restaurant keeper laughed again. The restaurant keeper laughed again. He asked me to take off my coat. Okay, fine. He said, okay, oh, He started laughing. Ha ha ha. Okay, you go fine. You want to give your coat? Come on, remove your coat and keep on my table. He asked me to take off my shirt. Coat, okay, fine. He's selling, okay, fine. Yeah, you remove your shirt also. I took off my shirt. He asked me to take off both my shoes. Now, one by one, he's asking the author to remove these, to remove that, and innocently and very, very, kindly, or you can say very calmly, humbly, he is doing it. I took off both shoes. Finally, he asked me to take off my trousers. So the idea seemed to be to strip me, gouge out my eyes, and send me out naked. This was the plan of the, you can say, the owner of what? Entirely stripping the author and sending him out, or you can say insulting him. I said, I have nothing on underneath. Innocently said, actually, please forgive me. I'll go, I'll get the money. Now, don't ask me to remove all these things beyond this because I have nothing underneath. I said, I have nothing on underneath. Everyone laughed. People who were there around over there, the crowd who was there around there, they were like, looking at him like hungry wolves. They all started laughing. The restaurant keeper said, I doubt it. You must have something on underneath. Again, this particular keeper, I'm calling creeper, no, sorry, keeper, he was not a kind person. He started commenting, he started, mocking him, making fun of him. I doubt you must have something on underneath. About 50 people repeated. You can just imagine 50 people are around there. The crowd of 50 people is over there. All of them, they are saying that there must be something on underneath because all of them, they are merciless people. They are cruel people and they just want to have fun with what is happening around or in front of them. My hands refused to move. I saw in my imagination, a man standing in the crowd, stark, naked, and without eyes. So he just imagined because there is no one around, no mercy, no kindness shown by the people around. Even he couldn't expect that God, maybe he's expecting let God come from somewhere and help him out. So he just imagined himself that he is completely naked with no eyes removed out by the keeper. Okay, fine, he said. Life was going to end like that. Fine, life is going to end like this. Fine, because he was such a helpless person. It's a reality. Muhammad Bashir, no, the life what he lived is a reality. Whatever this story is a reality. He said life was going to end like that. Let it end. For all this, I, never mind, O creator of the world, my God, I had nothing to say. Everything would end to the satisfaction of all. Okay, fine. If all are going to be satisfied, if the keeper is going to be satisfied by doing this, I have to, because I don't have any other option other than this. I began to undo one by one the buttons of my trousers. Then I heard a voice. Stop. I shall pay the money. Everyone turned in the direction of the voice. There stood a fair complexioned man, 6 foot tall, with a red turban and white trousers. He sported a handlebar mustache and had blue eyes. So this is what is the description of a man. He says that when I was about to remove the button of my trouser, I saw a person, and this is what I just got a picture of it. He's not the same person, but a man wearing red turban, white trousers, who had handlebar mustache. You can say handlebar mustache, and who was 6 feet long. At the same time, he had blue eyes. And then the author continues that blue eyes were common over there. Blue eyes were quite common at this place. He came forward and asked the restaurant keeper, how much did you say it was? So he came forward, maybe a kind person, a godly person, and he asked the owner, he asked the restaurant keeper, how much the man has to pay. 11 annas. He put the amount. He turned to me and said, put on your clothes. I put them on. like a innocent man. He followed the instructions given by this particular person. You can say he's a Masiha who had come to help him out. He paid the amount. He turned to me and said, "Put on your clothes." I put them on. "Come," he called me. I went with him. Did I have words to express my gratitude? It's quite natural now. Do actually I'm speechless. I don't know how to thank you. I told him, "You have done a great deed. I have not seen a finer man." Maybe he was staying over there from since you can say many months, and then he's agreeing that yes, till now I have not seen a kind person in this area. I'm really very happy. I have not no. You have really done a great deed. I have not seen a finer man. He laughed. "What's your name?" he asked. I told him my name and where I came from. Right? So it's quite natural. So I asked the man his name. So when he asked my name, I gave the answer. And I told actually I am from so and so place and I have come here. So after giving the information about me, I asked the man. He said, "I have no name." Now me kya rakha hai? Okay. I said, "In that case, Mercy must be your name." Oh, so you're not willing to tell me your name. By this also maybe the author was impressed. He's such a kind person that he even doesn't want to reveal out his name. So he says, "Okay, in that case, I should call you. Your name should be Mercy." He did not laugh at that. So when I said like this, he did not laugh. He walked on until we reached a deserted bridge. So he was walking in front and the author was following him. He did not reply, he did not laugh, he just went on walking till they came to a deserted bridge. He looked all around. There was no one. "Look, you must go away without turning around. If anyone asks you whether you have seen me, you must say no." I understood. Maybe this person is a very great person because he is helping me out, but he doesn't want to actually let the other people know that he is a kind person. He took out from his various pockets about 5 wallets. Five among them was among them was mine. Okay, so he took out from his various pockets about 5 wallets. So in his the clothes where what he was wearing, maybe it was pajama. We don't know about what they was wearing, suit or what, but from different pockets he removed out 5 wallets, and among them one was my wallet. Imagine what may be the reaction of the author. "Which of these is yours?" So among these 5 wallets, which one is yours? You understand what is the suspense over here? The person who helped him out was the thief, was a pocketer who had robbed his wallet from his pocket. I pointed to my wallet. "Open it." Okay, this is my wallet. He pointed out. So he's okay, fine. Take your wallet and open it. I opened it. My money was there intact. I put it in my pocket. He told me, "Go. May God help you." I repeated, "May God help you." Now, though they both are using the same dialogue, there is lots of difference. Now, what is the difference? Even you can interpret, but as per my interpretation, the money, the wallet which he had taken, of course, he has not used the money. But when the robber saw that this particular poor fellow is facing such a humiliating situation, he came out to help. Even though he's a cruel man, the situation over there, when he saw this particular person in, he became kind. No, his kindness, his kind heart uh, no, couldn't stop. He came forward to help that man. So if I say, he told me, "Go, may God help you." Because today I've helped you. Other times in future, you may face many problems because you are staying among cruel people. You are staying among murderers. You are staying among robbers. You are staying among pickpocketers. So he's saying that, "Go, May God help you. That in future, let God have His mercy. God have His no kind, uh, you can say blessings on you. I repeated, may God help you. Now it has got still deeper meaning that even the author understood this particular man is kind. People over here, they may be kind, but the situation over here makes them do all these things. So he says, may God help you. Because today you have helped me really, though you are the one who had taken my pocket, but when I fell into such situation, you came forward, you helped me. So may God help you. And even in future, like let God not make you, a robber, a murderer. Let your situation improve. Maybe in that sense he has to convey. And so he says, may God help you. So this particular story actually was written in Malayalam. It was translated by V. Abdullah. He gave the title as A Man. Of course, the English title is not very effective as the title which was given in Malayalam, Oru Manushan. That's why here in your textbook you have the title as given by the writer, Oru Manushan, not a man. And I hope it is very clear that this particular story tells you that humans should understand that when other person or when human being, one person should understand that when other person falls into such a pathetic situation, he has to come forward, he has to show mercy, he has to show understanding, he has to show kindness. Are you getting it? So with this, we end with this particular chapter. And let me tell you about V. Abdullah, the translator. He was the one who had brought the author to Kozhikode. He gave him the place to stay and he inspired him to write stories. Author used to write in Malayalam and many of the stories he has translated into English. And not only in English, other writers have translated many of the Malayalam stories written by the author into other languages. Okay, so with this, we end with this chapter. See you in the next one. Read the chapter. It's very, very simple. Try to understand the main theme, main gist behind the story. So till then, bye bye. Take care.